This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
Oh boy. Jupe making mistakes. I love it. And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow, too.
Let's get this bandwagon going, folks.
Take
Come
that,
on.
me, Mr. Negative.
I think Bart must be watching upstairs. Rut-row.
Oh, is Jupe be awake for Thanksgiving tomorrow?
Jupe's roommate's worried. Jupe's roommate's worried.
Jupe's roommate. Now, here's Jupiter and Vegoe. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 256. Well, Vigs, I'm back in the country. I got my emergency passport. They let me back in. And now you're saying if the Gophers lose this weekend, I have to go back to Dominican. What the hell?
Will they take you back?
I don't know.
You're not like Ogie Otorp. When they go back, they won't accept you again.
I don't think this thing has really many pages. I don't know. I know I can use it, but it's only got like a couple pages for stamps. So,
Okay, well, we'll just send you back and forth, but hopefully we don't need to. Gophers played great this past weekend against Ohio State, just as I predicted, 6 points.
You did.
And they needed them.
I'm still at this prove it to me. And it was Ohio State. They're still a terrible team. Terrible team in the league.
Terrible record. And I think Steve Rolick is going through a tough time with this group. You know, he's brought in so many new players for that Ohio State roster. They just aren't feeling it. And you could sense it over the weekend, the frustration, bullying over, Thiessen going after Snuggerud at the end of the game and sticking him with one right in the middle of the chest to let him know he wasn't happy. Because maybe that's the last time he'll see him in a college game.
Well, he might. I mean, they could easily play him in the playoffs here.
They could.
I mean, were you surprised there wasn't some supplementary punishment there?
I am a little surprised. At availability this week, Bob fielded a couple questions. Players fielded a couple questions about the incident. And they all stayed away very carefully because I haven't seen anything like that in a college game, where someone goes right to the bench to try to settle a score. And I don't know how hard it was with the stick to the chest. It could have just been like, hey, remember me, I'll remember you kind of thing. Or was it, hey, I'm going to jab you real hard real quick. So I don't really know, but it was a little out there. Thiessen wasn't happy that he got the exploding shoulder from Snuggerud earlier in their period.
But was it a good hit? Was it illegal?
He wanted to go after him legally, and Snuggerud hit him back. And so sometimes that's that gray area. Sometimes officials maybe want to get involved and call an interference penalty on that stuff. But I thought it was fine.
You see, that's one thing I haven't liked about the NHL recently. Someone gets a good, clean, legal hit, and somebody goes after the guy. And I've never been a fan of that. I mean, it never was that way in the past. If someone gets a good hip check on you, you don't retaliate. You get up, you keep playing, you hit them back legally.
We're in a weird spot of the game.
It is. That's a good thing right there. We're a weird spot in the game. So we got a 5-2 victory Friday night, a 6-3 victory Saturday night. Tell me what's up with both of these games. What impressed you the most about both of these games?
I think the thing that impressed me the most is we are seeing Minnesota buy in to making possession plays. After the weekend, I asked Bob, as a coach, are you happy to see your team not just try to score off the rush every time? Are you happy to see them pass up, just putting a puck on net and cycle it a little bit, put some pressure on the opponents and gain momentum? And he was like, that's all we're talking about in the locker room. He accused me of having a mic. I've bugged the locker room so I can hear what they're giving their pregame take. And I'm just like, no, I just can see it on the ice and I can hear a couple of his comments in the radio postgame and in the postgame with us. That's what he's trying to instill in this team. And so for this program to buy into that is really important, because with Michigan State on the calendar here coming up, I checked out some of their games. They are not doing that kind of stuff. they are in that fire wagon hockey mode where they're trying to score all the time. Sometimes it's okay just to possess the puck for 60, 90 seconds and gain some momentum.
I've got some thoughts about that we'll talk about later with Michigan State, and they do play fire wagon hockey, but they're a little undisciplined, so it'll be interesting to see how Minnesota handles that this weekend.
I think the other thing I was happy with is we're seeing the continued growth of Renzel. He's got 12 assists since coming back from the World Juniors, and I don't know if I've seen any mistakes since he's come back either. That was the big thing with him in the first half. He'd rush the puck and he'd get caught below the dots and he couldn't get back and there wouldn't be coverage. I haven't seen that so far in the second half. And I know the competition's going to get better here the next couple weekends, but so far, he is not touching the stove. He's getting near the stove, but he knows where he can get to and where he should stay away from. And it's just showing in the points and in the score sheet. And he just seems really confident right now. And I think that's what Minnesota really needs for their second half to take off.
Same thing with Pitlick. He's staying very consistent. He hasn't, since early in the season, but then he came on strong and he hasn't really dipped off. He's scoring every weekend. He's not on this huge game streak he was, but he's scoring every weekend. He's causing havoc out there. I still wish he'd have a little better decisions on some of his offensive zone passing and where he's dropping or putting the puck. But that's the kind of play we needed to see out of him late last year. We didn't. So hopefully it stays this year.
Pitlick just seems more confident, a little bit heavier through contact. I felt like earlier in his career, every time he got knocked by someone, he lost his balance and he'd lose possession of the puck. This year, he's able to skate through that contact a little bit more effectively, which is paying off. And I really like the wrinkle we've seen lately with Minnesota and their faceoff plays. And that's something that Steve Miller is introducing this team in the second half. And they've got a couple goals off of those faceoff plays. And it's not just Snuggerud, it's Pitlick at some points too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really going to help this team down the stretch. I asked Bryce Brodzinski about that. He's just like, the years I've been here before, we just focus on getting possession off faceoffs. And now we're trying to be deceptive and create offense off those draws. And it's already paying off. And once you get to the end of the year, if you can get some goals off faceoff plays, it's only going to help.
I still think on the offensive side that this team will go as far as Nevers, Nelson, and Brodzinski bring them. Obviously, Nevers didn't get a goal until Robert Morris. His assists were down. Brodzinski's kind of been all over the place. Nelson's, that's just the exact kind of for a while. But I still think if they want to be successful and get back to a Frozen Four, that line needs to step it up and be consistent. Multiple, they need to get a couple goals a weekend, at least from that line, not disappear.
Well, I think the bigger key for them is to gain momentum like they did last year. They are showing up in the score sheet this year. Okay. Bryce Brodzinski's up there in the team lead in points. He's right there. They're generating offense.
But then you had Nevers going the other way.
Well, Nevers has been recovering from his concussion pretty much all season. And he mentioned that, after the CC series, it's the first time he's felt in good enough shape to compete in a close game. And he said there's stages, there's practice shape, there's game shape, and there's close game shape. And he finally feels like his head is clear enough to be in close game shape. And they need that. And I think Bob is trying to help him along. I don't know if people noticed on Saturday, he and Brodzinski flipped wings so that Nevers could be on his forehand side and Brodzinski had to go on his off wing side. And the reason Bob said they did that was to try to help them get out of the zone because Nevers was probably having a little bit of tricky, tough times handling pucks on his off wing. And by putting Brodzinski in that situation, he's a little bit bigger and heavier player. He should be able to handle the contact and advance the puck forward. So they're hoping to make the game easier for Nevers. So I think it's still a work in progress with that line,
Yes.
But I don't think they need to be a dominant scoring line. I think they
No,
just need to be a momentum
yeah.
line and play tough matchups.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd like to see a little more physicality out of Nelson. I mean, he's such a big kid. I mean, I've always thought Nelson would be, not would be, but could be more of a nice player. Bear with me, where he protects the puck so well. Nyes did it with strength, and he was not overly huge, but Nelson could really do it with strength and size, protect the puck. I just want to see a little more out of that. That's just me.
You'd like to see him be a little bit more of a bully on puck possession and puck battles.
Yeah.
Because that was something that Matt Nyes was really good at. I was listening to Drew Cove and Nate Wells this week, and they were talking about how when Nelson was a freshman, he took so many penalties from hits that he was delivering because he's so big, every time he makes contact. But figuring out how to be physical in puck battles and puck possession and board battles, that's a different skill than delivering big hits. And I do think that there is room in his game for that to develop. And it's something he probably has to do if he wants to be a professional. I think that took Nick Bukestad a long time to figure out that sometimes you have to be a little bit of a jerk on the ice and bully people with your size. And I think it's hard for that big player to realize being physical isn't making big hits all the time. It's being tough to play against.
But all in all, a very successful weekend, Vigs. They moved up to number 9 in the pairwise. I believe they're still there. So that's good because they had been hanging around that 12 and 11 mark. So it's really key to get up there because obviously we've got some huge games coming up, and it's going to be important.
Yeah, I think the one thing I didn't love out of the weekend was the penalty kill. Especially in the Friday night game, they gave up 2 power play goals to Ohio State. That I know they'd worked really hard on it all week trying to get ready for Stephen Holiday and an Ohio State power play that was good, and they gave up 2 on Friday. Sometimes losing track of Holiday. That's something they're going to need to really focus on going forward is, understand what they need to do against their opponent a little bit more and make sure they're aware of where the dangerous guys are on the ice.
Well, I want to get into one of our sponsors here, Vigs, and let me tell you, I was in a very warm location last week. It was mid-80s every day, felt like 93, 94, and let me tell you, my chill boys came in extremely. They just
was it life-changing? Was it life-changing comfort?
I don't know if it was life-changing, but it sure made the hot and humidity feel a lot better.
Well, if you're looking for something life-changing, maybe you got to go with a different option of the Chill Boys. Maybe the bamboo boxer briefs aren't what you're looking for. Maybe
that's
you want
what I've got. Maybe
boxers.
I do need to switch it up. Maybe switch it up.
Maybe a little more room and comfort with the bamboo boxers, or maybe you want to tighten things up with some performance boxers. So, they've got 3 options now. Check them out. Visit chillboys.com. Use PullTab15 for 15% off. Comfort where it counts.
Definitely comfort, and I can definitely vouch for that. And then, of course, Vigs, we've got Cub. Barb was just at Cub on her way back from work today. It was nice to have some fresh fruit in our house. I'll tell you that.
There you go. Cub's got great produce. They're one of us, Minnesota company. They're on the Pull Tab Sports Wagon. They're on PJ Flex headset. They sponsor the Wild on 7th podcast, and they're in one of your neighborhoods for great food and beverage needs. If you're eating healthy, January, and you're looking for that fruit and produce, Cub's a great spot. If you're looking for the fresh milk, Cub's got the freshest milk. And if you need some THC because you're going on dry January and you want something else, check out one of their wine and spirits store. But everything you need, one of us, Cub.
And we also gotta thank Cub and Chill Boys for being sponsors of the GPL podcast. We talked a little bit about Schlossman's article on what he would like to see with the NCAA tournament. We had Adam Wodon kind of do his rebuttal on that this week, Vigs. Give me your thoughts on Wodon's rebuttal.
I think it's tough that a guy like Adam chooses to go right after the pairwise as saying it's great for setting the field for the tournament, but it's not great for seeding the tournament. And I think we all understand that it's not going to be a perfect solution. That was one of the things that just got me right away, because a lot of people say, I like pairwise because I know what I have to do to get in the tournament. Bob was talking about this week. He's like, we got to get some wins. We've put ourselves in not the best position the first half because we've been growing as a program. Second half, we've got work to do because the mathematical formula doesn't take passengers along. You got to earn it. So I think that was an interesting take. The other thing he talked about was, the teams who are the 3 and 4 seeds who are getting home ice advantages. He thought maybe one way to change that is, well, you can only do that if you're a 1 or 2 seed. Okay. We're already having trouble getting bids for tournament regions out west. Now, if you're the 1 or 2 seed, you're going to get your home seed because you're the host. But if you're a 3-4, you got to go somewhere else. And your fans are going to go somewhere else. Could you imagine North Dakota being a 3 or 4 seed, having a regional in Fargo and having go to Manchester? That would be insane. And then I think those North Dakota fans, out of spite, might not resell their tickets because they would much rather be in Fargo or Sioux Falls. So those I thought were some disingenuous arguments from him just to make a point. And so that's frustrating because I think
in his ear, Vig. Someone's saying, "Oh, can we get this out there?"
He is a Mark Schaefer disciple. And I get Schaefer. With Cornell, they came to the Mariucci Regional and they got smoked. And that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But I don't think
even overtime in one of those.
Yeah. But I don't think that should really shape your argument for all of college sports. I'm looking at this from the big picture. What's best for the game? And what's best for the game is these campus sites in the first and second round. And I just think that it's the best thing going forward. You talk about growing the game. I think providing great atmospheres at the 8 home sites is the way to do that. Not try to put it in St. Louis or Loveland or rotate it between Omaha, Sioux Falls, and Fargo every year. I just don't think it's a good thing, especially out west. And we've got so many Eastern coaches that are just looking at it from a selfish point of view because they don't have the problems that we have out west. There's lots of AHL buildings out east, and they probably want to keep it that way.
But then, you have so many times where a number 4 Providence will play number 1 Mankato, Minnesota State, basically in their own backyard. I'm like, well, Mankato gets the overall number 1 seed and they have to go out there, or, there's things like that. Or, Mankato being at home against Providence.
Yeah. Usually I think what's happening is you're having these Western teams having to go out to these Eastern regionals and play home teams. You just don't seem to have that out west because there's only one regional. So there's typically going to be a Western team that's going to be in the top 4, and that's where they're going. And so you don't have these Eastern teams that are having to do the same situation that so many Western teams have to do all the time.
Just look at it. Minnesota, when they went out east a couple seasons ago, they had to play Western Michigan right off the bat in front of nobody. Western Michigan coming to Minnesota, and you have that same game where Minnesota's got to come back and, Ben Myers wins it in overtime and 5 people cheer there, and compared to 10,000 here.
Or heck, if it's reversed and Minnesota has to go to Western, that's a great atmosphere there too. And I'm sure the players would love that. Yes. I think a lot of fans would love to go to these games. And I think a lot of players almost enjoy sometimes being the villain. And it's hard to be the villain when it's an empty building.
That is true. So me and Cappy were all kind of chatting this week and kind of talking about that. And he brought up something that someone had told him. So I've been putting it out there that the Maryland Heights Regional this year, Maryland Heights, Missouri, just outside of Kansas City, that building, he learned, only holds 2,500 people, Vigs. So they're going to sell some. Are they going to allocate 500 tickets per 4 teams? 250 tickets? I mean,
typically it's 500 a team. So there's going to be 500 tickets available for Lindenwood and the local people to grow the game.
Oh yeah, Bobby. He said I said near Kinsey. Yes, near St. Louis. That's my mistake on that one. But an Aldridge. Why don't we just go to Aldridge Arena? I mean, it's basically. I mean, I know Braemar is over 2,000. Bloomington Ice Garden is 2,000. I mean, what are they thinking here?
Well, they're thinking that they don't want to be in Fargo or Sioux Falls, giving it to North Dakota every single year, because that's the school that's bidding.
But they're in Sioux Falls this year too.
There aren't enough bids out west. There just aren't. Denver put together that Loveland bid, and they got one. It's probably not a great setup, but just, they were the only ones that did it other than North Dakota, so they got it. You have a lot of these schools, they just don't want to risk the $100,000 guarantee to the NCAA on top of the $280,000 it takes to put on a regional. And on top of that, you need 100 volunteers to staff a regional. So it's not just like an easy thing for a school to pick up. You've got schools like Duluth and Mankato that are kind of cutting their administrative staff, and then you expect them to put on an event like this in Sioux Falls or in Fargo or something. It's just not going to happen for them. You have to have a big enough university that can take on and staff one of these events. And there's just not enough of them out west that are willing to take that risk. You've got St. Cloud, their whole school is kind of on a cliff right now of fiscal issues.
Yes.
You want them to try to host a regional on top of that?
So maybe they should go back to home rinks.
It makes a lot of sense. I asked Bob about it today, and he kind of threw his hands up, and he's like, hey, I just want to make the tournament. I'm not going to get involved campaigning one way or the other. And I get that from his perspective. He's lived it at Minnesota. He's lived it at St. Cloud. He's been in great regionals. He's been in bad ones. He's heard all the arguments from all the coaches. I do think this is going to be a tough sell in Naples, but I just think it's for selfish reasons. There's other options they could do, but the Western regionals are a problem. East isn't so bad, and it would be a lot better for the game.
Unless there's Western teams playing in it. We should, might be just a project. Let's just look at last year's tournament. Who would have hosted who, and then see who. I mean, it would just. And like you said, if you're filling, I mean, yeah, you might not be filling up huge arenas, but you go to North Dakota, that's what, 12,000. You're going to the Kohl Center. It's the same thing. You could fill these places up. You've got, I mean, even Ohio State's got a gigantic arena and things like that. I mean, you could make a lot more money off of $20 tickets filling a Mariucci than you will Maryland Heights, Missouri.
Well, Mike Ross from Penn State did the analysis on his own, and he's like, the NCAA hockey will make an extra $2 million by moving to these home rinks. And I think right now the distribution for each school for hockey is like 60,000. If they do this, that goes up to 120,000. It's a significant difference for some of these smaller schools. If you're one of those Atlantic hockey schools where you're only going to get to go to one of these games, once every 5 or 6 years anyway, would you rather get an extra $600,000 in your program over that time? Or did you want to play in an empty neutral site building for that one chance to maybe get to the second round?
It's just goofy, Vigs. I could, but Wodan's like, well, what about the 8 and 9 seeds, and maybe the 7 and 10 seeds and things like that. Like you said, where you're at.
Hey, and I'm fine too if you have the pairwise to say who gets in the tournament, and then you have a committee match them up and just disregard the math. I'm fine with that too. Put them in a smoky room and figure out who's the 8 seed or the 9 seed. I'm fine with that too. I think they still want to avoid the conference matchups in the first round and move the seeds around, but just do it the way they've always done it. If you're the top 4, you're a 1 seed. If you're 5 through 8, you're a 2 seed, and so forth.
basically if you're a 1 or 2 seed, you're a home team.
Yep.
And, and you're set in, I guess they could have some set brackets then, Vigs. Because let's say a team, let's say, get the 1 and 2 of a bracket gets upset. Well, then it's going to be at the 3rd seed. We've seen 3 and 4 teams, the 3 and 4 ranked teams, get to a regional final. Well, I mean, who would have thought that? So there's
we've seen Bemidji get to a Frozen Four.
Seeds. There's potential for 3 seeds who are 9, 10, 11, and 12 ranking in the pairwise could host a game if the way the chips fall. I don't know.
I just hope we keep this conversation going through April, and we hear from some more Eastern coaches, because I've heard CHN, I've heard Brad, I've talked to Coach Motzko, we've heard David Carl. I just want to hear some more Eastern coaches and their perspective on the issue, because really they're going to be the ones that either make this possible or the ones that shut it down. Because I think the Western coaches are pretty united in voting for this and trying the campus sites and just see how it goes. But those Eastern coaches been pretty quiet on the issue, and I would like to hear from them and their reasons, one way or the other.
Let's get some of those Hockey East teams on board. I mean, think about it. How about a game up in Maine this year, since Maine is kind of back, is back this year? How about a home game?
Yeah, I mean, this is great for Maine. It's great for Quinnipiac. If Cornell gets going and they get in the top 8, they'll have a home ice game too. It could be good for them.
Yeah. It's just an interesting topic. And then when I saw the 2,500 seat arena, I'm like, oh boy. Can you imagine if like a Minnesota and a Michigan or something like that gets sent to that regional? I mean, good luck getting into it. Going to be watching, most of us will be watching on TV. Maybe we could cover it. That would get us in the arena, but fans are going to be out of luck for that regional.
And you're not going to see Excel get back in the cycle.
Big arenas, no.
I think it's $75,000 a day in cost for the facility, and you need it for at least 4 days. So that's $300,000 there. So that right there makes it more expensive than the average cost of any other regional, just with the ice facilities. You're not looking at all the other things on top. Excel doesn't want to give up the additional dates at this point, and Minnesota doesn't want to take the risk. It looks pretty good that Minnesota is going to be a tournament team going forward, but you can never control the matchups either.
All right. Well, it's an interesting subject, and we'll just, like I said, we'll keep talking about it, and then let's, and even if Gophers, let's say Gophers don't make it to the Frozen Four Vigs, let's get some credentials, let's get in there, and let's talk to those coaches that will be at the Frozen Four. Let's get their thoughts on it.
For sure.
Definitely, for sure. Well, we need to hear a little bit more from our sponsors.
Are you tired of the same old fundraisers? Paying $15 for a stale bag of popcorn, chocolate candy bars melting in your car, and more frozen pizzas than you have freezer space. Introducing Ferda Fundraisers, a fundraising company with as much personality as the people who play the game.
Lift big, throw gas, big diggers.
Big dump for the boys.
Choose from great products made by local companies, flexible plans built around your needs. Sell how you want and be supported from start to finish. Deliver max return without charging people a fortune. It's never been easier to support your community. Ignite your fundraising with Ferda Fundraisers. Ferda Boys, Ferda Girls, Ferda Community, Ferda Fundraisers.
Jake Middleton here, Director of Hair and Hygiene for the Minnesota Wild. How did I get this important role with the team, you ask? I'd like to think it was because of hard work, but the truth is, I run hot. Yep, I'm a sweater. In my role as Director of Hair and Hygiene, I'm sort of like a player coach. Let me pull out the grease board here. Well, it's not actually a grease board, because there is nothing dirty about Duke Cannon. How do I help the guys stay squeaky clean? helpful reminders. It's simple. Tarps off, Duke cannon on. Say it with me. Tarps off, Duke cannon on. Tarps off, Duke cannon on. Pick the scent that suits you. Sawtooth, thick body wash, extra thick. And my favorite, midnight swim. Tarps off, Duke cannon on. Duke Cannon. Work harder, smell better.
And of course, we thank Ferda Fundraisers and Duke Cannon for sponsoring the GPL podcast. I was telling Viggs in the pregame show, nothing but Duke Cannon the entire trip in Dominican. So it worked just perfectly in that completely tropical weather. So great stuff.
Stay tuned. We're talking about having some giveaways at home games down the stretch here for the Gophers. So, follow us on the social media platforms and look for us around the rink.
Definitely a good reminder there, Viggs. All right, now, Viggs, heading to Michigan State. Technically, Minnesota has not lost in 16 straight games to Michigan State. I believe it was 14 wins in a row, and then didn't they split here earlier this year, or was it something like that?
Yeah, I think
bring it up on your phone. Let's see what it was here.
There's the shootout loss.
Yes,
So,
3-3 tie with a shootout loss and a 6-5 victory
in
over
overtime.
Minnesota. So
Overtime games.
Yes. So haven't lost technically haven't lost per the NCAA rules and pairwise in 16 games. I don't know if that's going to continue this weekend, but we know Michigan State has they've turned it around this season. We kind of saw it coming last year when they kind of started off hot and then they cooled off, but they've started off hot this year and they've continued to be hot. Boy, Nightingale is just doing a fantabulous job there.
Well, he definitely knocked out of the park in the portal with Joey Larson, Reg Savage, and Isaac Howard. They've got 3 of their top scorers that came out of the portal. It's like going into the deck and drawing out 3 aces. We saw the flip side of that with Ohio State. They go in the portal and, maybe they draw out like a 5, a 6, and a deuce or something. Adam Nightingale didn't have that happen to him. And I watched condensed games of their matchup with Michigan, and Sparty is dangerous. Even in the game they lost, I thought the first 5 minutes they came out with really good jump, really good energy. They were on their toes. They were jumping pucks. But then, like we've seen with Michigan State and Michigan, there are just these egregious turnovers, and they're giving away goals. So I think that's something
I like that.
We've seen that happen with Minnesota too. You have these players who are just so focused on pulling off the move or winning the one-on-one battle or flashing the skill, and they make a risky play in a low reward situation, and they give offense the other way. So I think that's really something that when you play the more experienced teams like Minnesota maybe is becoming, it becomes a dangerous situation for Michigan State because they so badly want to make their mark in a weekend that they give away goals and they can't quite outscore their mistakes.
Well, we touched on it a little bit earlier. Yes, they're kind of a high flying team, but I think some GPLers even took out a lot of the penalties that were taken last weekend against Michigan, which is natural rival, going to be more penalties. They're still a very undisciplined team when it comes to penalties. They're still taking a lot. I think to get over the ultimate hump, they need to kind of cut that in half a lot. That's somewhere where Minnesota could take advantage of is the power play because they know they're going to get quite a few.
I do think some of the penalty stuff of the Michigan State series is blown out of proportion. Some of that's just a ref saying, let's just get to the end of the game and give guys 2 and 10s. So all those penalty minutes, is a lot of hugging and face washing. It wasn't real violent. It wasn't like 1970s college hockey where things got totally out of control all the time, as Pat McLitty is familiar with. So that said, Minnesota's power play, I think, needs to continue to evolve. I think we've seen them get pretty static at times in their positioning. You're seeing some of that change. I really like it when they move to that low spread, when they put Snuggerud and Pitlick down along the goal line and change where players are and just kind of confuse the penalty kill for the other team. I know Ohio State did that to Minnesota on Friday when they're moving Holiday around. So that's something I'm still looking for in that power play unit, but it's going to be important. Minnesota did get some power play goals. That needs to continue to happen for them to be successful.
I think one of the keys this weekend is going to be defense. When it's high flying, you need to have disciplined defensemen who make the right choices at the right time. When to jump in, when not to jump in. We've seen Renzel jump in a little too much at times, but he's gotten a little smarter with it. This is where you need the leadership of somebody like a Kester to play well himself, but also get guys, hey, play smart here. We don't need that extra guy up there and get counterattacked and not have enough guys back. So I think defense is going to be huge in a high-flying type of series.
The flip side of that is I think Minnesota's defensemen can be extra dangerous if they get involved in the offensive zone for loose pucks.
Okay.
We saw that a little bit with Middlestat, Thomas, and Renzel and Chesley this past weekend, where they were jumping on pucks around the hash marks as the other team gets tired and starts throwing the puck around. That's the time, if you know your shift discipline and you know who you're out against and you have that awareness, that's a time to jump a puck, maintain possession, and continue to apply pressure on the other team. The thing that I notice when they do that, though, is they have a Jackson Nelson or an Aaron Hewlin who sees it happening and knows to cover back. And that other defenseman can slide over to give support, so you still have 2-3 players above the puck. That's critical team hockey that Minnesota has the ability to play, and I want to see them continue to do that.
Play smart.
Because when they do that, they are one of the most dangerous teams in college hockey, because one of the things Minnesota defensemen do is skate well. And so if you can involve them in offensive possession, it's only going to lead to more opportunities and more danger and more chaos.
What does Michigan State need to do? Do they need to do anything different to be successful? Because they still haven't gotten a regular season win. Maybe it's still a little bit in their heads because some of those guys have been there a while. What do they need to do to be successful?
Well, I think they need to be more mature in front of their own goal. One of the things that Michigan really did to them was put traffic and pressure and pucks around the crease. And Augustine seemed to struggle with that. He didn't have clear looks at the shooters. He had trouble with rebounds. A lot of Michigan State guys were, looking at the puck, not picking up their checks. Michigan State's got young defense, just like Minnesota. They've got, I think, 4 or 5, freshman defensemen. Minnesota needs to really challenge them around the net and play, big boy hockey and play physical and engage those battles. Because I think Michigan State maybe struggles at times there. So it's an opportunity for Minnesota, and probably a weakness that Michigan State has to rectify, because you can't compete down the stretch here unless you can be strong in front of your own net. And I don't care how good your goalie is, if he can't see the puck and there's loose rebounds where free opponents can jump on them, you're going to have a hard time being successful.
All right. What happens this weekend? I mean, the logical old school Lucia would say, sweep at home, split on the road. Split on the road is a successful weekend. What do you think?
I know the speed limit's going up from playing Colorado College, Robert Morris, Ohio State to Michigan State, but the way Minnesota played these last 3 weeks makes me think that they are maturing and getting better, and they are ready for this kind of matchup. And watching Michigan State play that rivalry series home and home with Michigan exposed a lot of question marks I have with their team. So I think 6 points for the Gophers on the road.
Wow. I like that, Vigs. That's bold. It's not bold for me, but that's bold from you.
It's very bold for me. I usually don't pick them to do well on the road, but I just think we're seeing this maturity and this growth, and I think it's going to be a great matchup for Minnesota.
Just looking at the standings here. Let me see. Well, yeah, they're 10 points behind Michigan State right now. You sweep them, you're within 4. So Wisconsin still has the edge, though, since they're at 30 points and they have 2 games in hand on Michigan State. Notre Dame's just 1 point up on Minnesota, but it has played 2 more games. I mean, you look at Notre Dame's played 16, Wisconsin 12. It's kind of interesting, Same thing with Michigan. They've only played 12 games as well. So I have a feeling that, Notre Dame's going to kind of drop here in the next few weeks as, both Minnesota and Michigan kind of catch up with them in games.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State kind of drop down in pairwise on the standings. I think you're going to see Michigan, Minnesota rise up in the pairwise, and I think you're going to see Michigan State kind of drift with Minnesota back and forth.
Okay. All right. I'm thinking more split this weekend. I'm not as bold as you. I'm still I haven't seen as many games. I tried, I watched some of the second Ohio State game when I got home, but I was just distracted and a bit. So it'll be nice just to kind of sit down this weekend and watch the games. And there's one thing, Friday night, BTN Plus only, folks. So if you're not on it's B1G Plus, I guess it is. If you don't have that program, you'll be listening on the radio or Frank and Doug over the stream because there is no regular TV. And that's a 5 p.m. game Saturday, Big Ten Network, I believe. 3 p.m.
3 o'clock and 3 o'clock early.
I like that.
It's going to be a quick turnaround.
It is, but let's go. People complain about, someone's like, I pay $180 in TV each month. I'm like, why are you paying so much? Are you doing that just so you can get Bally Sports or what? It's just, I don't know, just different priorities, I guess, Viggs. And,
we all make choices.
You and I have been preaching for years. Get on board, folks. Get on board with the streaming because it's coming and it's going to be more prevalent. And I believe, is there Penn State? We got another game that's just back to my schedule again. I guess see it here. Let me see what we got here.
This wasn't a pre-show, everyone. We didn't break down that we're going to look at TV schedules.
Well, I usually don't. So it's like stream only here. It was Wisconsin next weekend.
That'll be a big series.
Both games beat V1G Plus. Got to have the stream next weekend. That is weird that there's no TV for that.
Well, some of this is on the host schools investing in the TV production. We talked about that way early in the year. Minnesota's obviously made it a priority to have a high quality production crew working at their sites. Other schools, not so much. So we'll see. And then we'll have the Peacock for the Notre Dame series.
Yep, exactly.
Another
the Peacock's done a great job. Whenever I do it, I do it I just get the 1 month for like $4.99 or $5.
Pretty affordable. Yeah.
Yeah. For the 1 month and then catch up on whatever Peacock TV shows that are streamed only and get rid of it after a month. It's well worth it, V's.
Yeah.
So big weekend coming up. Looking forward to it. I love the early games. Allows me to go out after the game on Friday. Allows me to go out after the game on Saturday. Maybe have a few beverages, cause a little trouble. Who knows? But it's all good. It's crunch time, Viggs. There's no doubt about it. It is crunch time. Minnesota needs to start winning. Needs to start showing that they can be the team we thought they could be.
And I could sense Bob's feeling good about his team. Okay. I put a quote on Twitter here before the show where, Nightingale's done a nice job with his team. He's done a good job in the portal and he's got some good returning players. And, but we're a different team than we were when we played them last time. And, I feel like we did pretty well in that series too. So we'll see
Is
how it
Bob kinda
goes this weekend.
Yeah, they're a nice little team.
They got a cute little team. They got some cute little transfers that flash a little bit, but
Yeah.
we don't have any transfers on this roster.
Anything in the hopper? You got something in the hopper, don't you?
I probably got too much in the hopper. I've been busy with the youth hockey world the last couple of weeks, so it's been busy, but I've got stuff in the hopper. It's coming. I'm working with Us Show for something coming up too.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So that'll be fun.
Who you
So
working
stay
with over
tuned.
there?
Well, you'll see.
He won't even tell me. He's so
I won't even tell you. I got
He's so
zipped. I'm tight with my sources.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We'll be back next week to recap the MSU series, and we're going to Madison the week after that. So I'll have Todd Molesky on next week as well. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for overtime. For the rest of you, catch you next week on the GPL podcast. It's green.
It's green.
Beef. Size
So this
11.
is size 11, double dry hopped, triple IPA from Steel Toe. If you're a longtime listener, you know that Steel Toe is one of my favorite breweries, and they're a little underrated, and they make great beer. So this is their size 11. Cheers.
Cheers to everyone. Yes. Yeah, I had to move my camera. I moved it up top now, so I'm not so always going like this on the show. So a little different angle at my place. Let's check the
Nectar of the
comments.
Gods right here. So good.
Is it really?
Yep. Not even a sponsor. Love it though.
B1G doesn't look fierce before KT. It depends on who's doing it and stuff. I always come back to you. I can see the game. I don't care. I can turn the volume down. I can turn up, Frank and Doug. Frank and Doug. Oh, jeez. Wally and Frank. Yeah, there's a faux pas right there. But yeah, the whole I didn't even look. I had forgotten that the entire road Wisconsin series is Big 10 plus only.
Yeah.
What's this?
Do you remember the liquor store stop we made in the Forks? We saw the Eddie Belfour whiskey bottles.
I remember. Yeah, I remember that.
They're
I
really
don't remember
fancy
seeing the
looking.
whiskey, but I remember that store.
Yeah. Well, they had the fancy Belfour bottles there because it's the Forks. And Big Mistake likes the rye whiskey from them. So Eddie likes the whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah. 2,500 in the arena. Wow, that's.
Before we get to the arena stuff again, Big Mistake. Top rye I've ever had was a Whistle Pig 10-year rye that Town Hall had. So Town Hall and Seven Corners there, they got like a barrel pick, and then 1010 Washington got to sell some of it. It was outstanding. Really good rye whiskey. Spendy, but really good. But yeah, this regional stuff.
It's got to go.
I can tell Bob didn't want to get into it because he doesn't want to be the person to change it. I think part of that might be because I think Bob knows that he's the coach at Minnesota, which is maybe not the person who should be
not
leading
the pulpit
changes.
to be yelling and
Don Lucia learned that when he tried to do the age rule thing, and Dan Myers came down and berated him during the availability about it, and so much so that we had to stop and have a separate
who did that
discussion. Dan Myers, Mankato lover.
Are you kidding me?
He came over because he was writing for someone at the time. I think it's CHN.
Probably the Wild maybe.
It was before he was writing for the Wild.
Okay.
But he really wanted to have it out and have a discussion about it, how unfair it was to these kids. And Don was like, how's it unfair for the kids? You're telling them to go play 3 years of junior hockey. You don't think their families would like them in college at 19?
When most of them aren't going to go pro anyway.
Right.
That's the big advertisement through the regionals. Most of these people aren't going pro. They're going pro in something else, in medicine and aeronautics, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So it makes for a more mature college student athlete probably to be 20, 21 when they get to school. They're not having their first beer. But I think it's hard on the families to force them to go through that, because I'm sure there's tons of kids who take that path and don't make it too. It'd be an interesting study now that I think about it. It's like, how many kids go play 3 years of junior and don't make it at a college and graduate? Interesting. I've been digging into finances and recruiting ages a lot this month. So,
Really?
Well, we got the big TV money coming to the contract here next year for Minnesota. So we'll see how they're going to spend it.
New Williams Arena
is going to be something. And then I know a lot of people are talking about how they're going to pay for it. They're going to pay for it just like they did TCF Huntington Bank. They're going to get some of it fundraised, but most of it's going to go into a 20-year loan that they're going to pay off.
Is there a chance they could go improving the road infrastructure, getting in and out?
Sometimes that's how pro teams will do it. They'll be like, hey, we'll pay for a lot of this stuff, but we need you to cover the infrastructure around the stadium. I don't know what kind of appetite there is for that. I know one of the current battles for the U is they can't use the People's Stadium for their baseball team this spring. So the Gopher baseball team and John Anderson's last year is going to have to go on a barnstorming tour of California and Florida.
Why can't they use the dome?
The Vikings aren't going to let them. I don't know how that happened, but they're not going to play there this spring.
Since when do the Vikings make the call during an off season when they're not even playing?
Yeah, right?
Is that the Met Council dropped the ball on that? What the hell?
Well, I don't think the Met Council exists anymore. I think they got replaced and they got bounced out of there. So, but I do think one of the biggest problems facing Minnesota is their traffic coming to games and then getting to the game, walking and parking, and then getting out. It's just
a bitch.
It's a massive pain. And I know you want to tell people to get there early. I know the Wild are doing the same thing, but man, it would be so much easier if they had more support for the game day traffic.
New grass getting laid down. That doesn't take them long to do.
They could easily do that in April and May or June, July. There's not a lot of football being played there during that time. So ridiculous.
It is. Man, and then you
it's not like there's any playoff games going on there right now.
Oh, well, what do you do? But the Williams situation is going to be interesting. They're having it being looked at, refurbished. It's going to be interesting. So, okay, you replace it. Oh, wait a minute. What's that? Craig floor hopping and wait till 4th Street gets a full dedicated bike.
He's just poking the bear. He's just poking the bear. Don't get him in trouble.
I'm not getting him in trouble, but he's not wrong. Who's going to sign early? Anyone else?
If I'm advising guys,
Renzo should stay, but he's a potential.
Well, I think the thing with Renzel is he'd probably have to play some minor league hockey. Yep. And that might be good for him to experience puck retrievals where they can come at you full speed and rail you into the boards. But at the same time, you can look at Brock Faber, Ryan Johnson, Jackson Lacombe. Maybe it's okay to stay 3-4 years and develop and go right into a NHL spot. But it's up to each kid. And you don't want kids on campus who don't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver Moore, he should be back. I'd be surprised if a lot of guys left early besides Snuggerud.
Snuggerud's gone, though.
I would think so. His shot is just so good right now. It's unbelievable. I suppose Pitlick would be a question. But he's seen what his brother's gone through, getting moved around. So maybe he's the kind of kid who would enjoy being around for another year.
Yeah.
But he's been really impressive the last couple of weeks too.
To say the least. Wow. I've liked his game pretty much all season. So
it's just the one thing I don't like is those passes south. Because every once in a while, his picture of where he thinks the puck is going and the player that should be there is not matching up. It's just like, that's a high risk, low reward pass. You can make those high risk, low reward passes going forward, but when you make them backwards, oh boy.
It can turn around real quick.
Steve Miller, a heart attack. You don't need a mic near him to pick up what he's saying when he sees a pass like that.
Oh, boy. The thing is, do they have police outside of the parking lots after games?
I mean, they've got some parking and transportation services people around, but it's just not organized enough, and they're just not on top of it.
So many other places, they're like, okay, you're going to go this way, you're going to go on this road, you're going out this way, this is the way it is, because it moves smoothly. And once you're out of the area, you find your highways and go wherever you need to go. I remember that even at Mankato, that gigantic parking ramp they got in Mankato, they just make everyone go down on the front street and you have to go out this way. And that's the way it is.
I wish it would.
But, you got the light system, you got Dinkytown, you got so many people go down 4th or University, whatever, which one it is. It's a mess.
Yeah, each ramp should have a dedicated exit route. And if you park in that ramp, that's where you go. It really should be that simple. If you're coming out of the 4th Street ramp, you have to go this way. If you're coming out of University ramp, you have to go this way. If you're coming out of lot 37, you're going this way. And if you don't want to go that way, park in a different ramp. They should totally have it like that. I remember once I went to the TCU Gopher Thursday night game, and there was something on University where a pedestrian got hit. And so what they did was they closed off that street and they just routed everybody like around it through River Road. And you didn't stop at any of the stop signs. You didn't stop at any of the stoplights. You just flowed out that way. And it was seriously 3 or 4 times faster. It was just amazing. And I was just like, why can't they just do this all the time?
Well, it sounds like they might do it for football, and that's about it.
Well, it's different when you have 50,000 people leaving versus 10.
True, but it's still a valid point. I mean, it's all those damn stoplights that are on timers. There's nothing.
And the train coming through.
It's just trouble for everything. Been stuck in a ramp for 1.5 hours. I don't know about that. Maybe for football. Hockey, we never are, because I've left hockey. We usually leave about 45 minutes after a game. Most people are gone, Viggs. We can get out pretty easily.
Well, yeah, it's that time, but right at the end of the game, if you wait for the end of the game, it can be challenging. So
I think more of the challenge is actually getting in. Especially
getting in can be bad
just
too.
A couple weeks ago was basketball. What was it? Basketball didn't decide their schedule until a couple days before, and they started like right before the Gophers. So we came down there super early. Rob, Sheila, and I came down super early and brought our stuff in. Then we're like, let's head over to the chicken place and just have an early meal and beat the traffic.
Yeah, it can be tricky to get into the ramps over by the closest parking spots, 37, 4th Street, especially if you're coming like from Como and trying to go that way.
Or
it
even
could be tough.
or even just University.
University can be
No, where
tough.
it's that's where it's like they need to fix some infrastructure there.
Biggest room for improvement probably for them. So we'll see.
They're limited on area.
We could talk about parking transportation for a long time. And I think
know.
one of the issues that we don't want to get to is just parking transportation. They're a separate department.
It was
of you
Canes
that doesn't
It was
play
totally
nice.
Canes, Jess, by the way.
They don't play nice with athletics. So they have their own budget. It's crazy. So
maybe the next ramp should be owned by the U and not some parking thing.
Well, the foundation, they should start taking over those.
They could change things if they wanted to, Viggs.
They could. Maybe President Ettinger, as the interim president, could just come in and start to do sweeping changes with parking and transportation. That'd be a way for him to make his mark. We got a Regents meeting coming up here in 2 weeks. We should bring it up. Should I show up for that? When Cora
show up
with
your steno pad, you've got a big list of stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me about this. Yes,
I've got a couple questions for you. Yeah.
I don't know. I just, because you talk about you want to replace Williams Arena. You do it in the same spot, you kind of have the same issues. If you try to go somewhere else with it, I don't know. Is there room on the other side of the parking lots for the football stadium? Way over there?
Might be easier. But I think you need a master plan for parking and infrastructure for football, and then figure everything else around that. Like, make that a priority. Like, I know they've got all those biomedical buildings over there.
Okay.
They made a plan with that. They're looking at doing this East Gateway entrance, as you come down from 280 into campus. They're making a priority to plan out what that looks like for campus. I really think for game day parking, that should be important as well. And someone who's an expert could probably figure this stuff out. Although it's fun to have a size 11 and try to solve the parking and transportation problem for the U. I'm not an expert. I did not stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
I don't know. It's just something to think about. Something to think about, especially because if you build something new for Williams on the other side, somewhere over there, that could probably work because then you could keep using Williams. You tear the whole Williams and Pavilion down and do something new. Not only will the parking stuff continue, now you've got to have where are you going to play these games? Does Mariucci become a basketball arena during the week? Does just things like that. It would get a lot trickier.
I don't think you want to do a combined venue for basketball if you can help it. So,
yeah.
Definitely the worst venue for actual amenities in the Twin Cities, right? The barn.
I thought it's okay, but
it's cool once you're in your seat.
I didn't even try with amenities when I went there last time.
It's cool once you're in your seat and you're watching the game.
But even then, gosh, these are the same seats that are at Mary. No, wait, they're like 2 or 3 inches skinnier than they are at Mariucci. So you're like, wait a minute, I'm a lot fatter.
Is there a girder in the way in this seat?
Oh, then there's that. But the regular seats, the back seats they look like Mariucci's, but they're not the same. They're probably 2 inches smaller. So I don't know. It's obviously you've got a lot of nostalgia with that building, but I've never won a national championship in that building.
It's not ideal.
When's the last time I won they've won one Big Ten title in the last 30, 40 years? And wasn't that
I don't know if those were problems with the buildings, though. Like when they played the Fab Five and beat them, that was a cool place to be. I was there for one of those games.
Yeah.
That was cool.
But it will also be cool in the brand new place with great amenities and getting recruits
If they
in
can
here.
come up with the money. Yeah.
Although, like I said, there's always money. But it's what are the priorities? Luckily, I don't care as much about basketball, so it's not a huge deal.
And they don't care about hockey. So
Exactly.
it's usually okay.
Unless you're Parker Fox. We know Parker Fox is a big hockey fan.
That's true. We'll take him where we can get him. Luke Buer as well. He's on board with us. He's a basketball fan. He's got his Buckets podcast with Ryan James.
So we've got a new guest coming on the show in a couple weeks, Viggs. You know, Cappy was messaging with us a couple of days ago, and he's like, I'm at lunch with, the voice of, Penn State hockey, Brian Tripp. You should get him on the show. We got a Penn State guy now, Viggs.
That's awesome. We
We've
just
been
got to get
waiting for a
Penn State guy, and we'll be on track here. But it'll be exciting to have Brian Tripp on. I look at him; he looks like the Hot Ones guy. Have you ever seen that where they eat the wings with the famous celebrities?
Oh yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you look like the Hot Ones guy. It's like we might have to have a GPL podcast beer of the week and maybe a wing of the week. Get some hot wings for that.
Oh gosh, no! I would be turning red and starting to sweat.
Just like you were last week when you were in the Dominican and you were toweling off.
Yeah, but that was actual weather.
Yeah,
I could be sitting here freezing cold, and I'll just start sweating with that stuff and start tearing up.
But yeah, it would be fun to get a Penn State guy on.
Yeah,
we can get the inside takes on Guy Godowski.
Sean Evans. Who's Sean Evans?
That's the Hot Ones guy.
That's the Hot Ones guy? Okay.
Yep. So
gotcha.
He looks a lot like him. And maybe it's just because all little skinny bald white guys look alike, but
I can't believe he eats the same stuff. You never see him really react to that stuff either.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing. Whereas a lot of celebrities literally just tearing up. That would be me.
Like, why
That'd be
am I
me
eating
after
this?
that would be me after number 2. The first one I'd be like, the next one I'd be just crying in my mouth. Give me some water.
Yeah, I like hot stuff, but I do have a limit. It becomes a point where it's not enjoyable for me. I can do it, but it's not fun. But I can do it if I need to.
Because we got 74 people watching us live right now. It's kind of a big audience for Michigan State. We got any Michigan State people watching us live on YouTube? Leave a comment.
The team is winning.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Do we have any questions from the people? We have a lot of chatter going on back and forth.
Yeah. Send us something here, folks. I mean, we've seen Jess Myers chime in. He's watching. And Craig Floor. What do you got for us, gang? Of course, it takes about 20 seconds for them to get to us.
Yeah. John Stark was in here saying Faber seems like the best case example of selling the extra year. I do think getting guys to stay the extra year is so individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily like they're going to show you the light. Be like, look at all these guys that stayed and all these guys that left early. And all the guys think, I'm going to make it. It's up to me. And if they think they're ready, they're going to leave. So it's a great example to show people, but ultimately it's up to the individual kid. Like Logan Cooley could see it. He played with those guys. And yet at the same point, he goes to dev camp. He's the best player there. And he's like, I think I'm ready for the next step. Let's go. And while the highlights are coming for him because he's a highlight player, I don't know how consistent he is for Arizona right now and how much it's fun for him to be a 19-year-old playing with men, rather than being a student athlete for another year. So it's a challenging choice.
Mote only wants dirt. He doesn't want questions answered. He just wants dirt. Tough man to please that Mote, Viggs.
Tough. You don't really want to give out dirt during the middle of the year when the team's winning, Mote. I don't think anybody gets fun from that. The one thing that was interesting this week is Sam Rossini made his pro debut in Utah. That was fun. And he got a point in his first pro game in the ECHL. And then Jake Paranto did a podcast with one of the Wyzetta assistant coaches is doing like this podcast now where he talks to a bunch of Minnesota hockey people, and he talked about all the eggshells he had to walk on when he was at Minnesota. As you remember, Parento, he was like a fourth line guy, and he played a lot, but he just wasn't very productive. And he just talked about how it was so stressful being at Minnesota and being in that environment with Genner, Lucia, Potolny, and just like the conflicts that were there all the time. And he just never felt comfortable. And it was a tough experience for him. So I'm looking forward to listening to the entire thing of that. Because he's involved in youth hockey now, and his big thing is trying to give kids confidence. So they've done a nice job on that podcast.
So, through Pull Tab Sports and Dinkytown Athletes, with their, Tom's Watch Bar podcast a couple weeks ago, V's, we've got a lot of gear and stuff. And we're thinking about, we got our loyal listeners here. Maybe we'll bring some gear to a game, something like that. Maybe we can get some of these loyal listeners come up to us and we'll give them some gear. I mean, just throwing some things out there. We got some swag a little bit, don't we?
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab a couple items that we'll
go
be
for it,
giving
man.
away. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Yeah, go grab a couple things. Well, okay. Works Minnesota, other schools depend. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments here. Swag. I think it would be fun just to get a cool sweatshirt and say, "Hey, first person who comes up to me at Mariucci can have it." Things like that.
All right, I'm back. Brought a few things from the goodie bag. So, we've got some things like this. This is Jimmy's salads, dressings, and dips. Don't be messing with the dressing. We got stuff like that. That's kind of fun. We've got like another one of these Unreal sweatshirts. So we got one of these to give away at some point. I got a pull tab hat. That's kind of fun.
One of those myself. I got one of those.
Got the rope liner on it. Pretty cool hat. Unreal. It's got the full, logo on there. And then I've got some of these.
Interesting.
So I got a little snuggie. This one's a medium, but it's a jersey. It's got the vintage Goldie.
I'm thinking a lot of wives might like that.
Yeah, it's got the vintage Goldie on the side. And I've also got a closer, the Pitlick one. So they're pretty cool.
Oh, that's swag.
So we've got some of that stuff. So we hinted at that during the show. I don't know how we're going to give them away just yet, but we'll have them at the rink.
Yeah.
So we'll have a way to win it and then meet us at the rink, I think. Does that sound good to you?
That idea.
Okay.
I like that idea.
If you're not into apparel, it's a midnight swim. So you can be like Jake Middleton. We'll do that. I've already cracked into these, so these are for me. We got the freeze-dried candy.
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
A little bit of sugar to get me through punching numbers. But that'll be fun. Give that stuff away. Hopefully, everyone in the chat when you're at a game, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe we could do it something like during a game where we can get, first period intermission. Come up, meet us somewhere. We'll think of something. Penn State series, folks. We'll figure something out by Penn State series. Okay, that's when they're back. Because there's only 4 more home games, Vigs.
That's kind of crazy how the schedule got front loaded. I think it made my wife kind of happy. Because it got me at the rink early, and now I'm home more on the weekends.
Saturday PSU. Maybe Mote's going to be there. He wants to get some swag. Oh, there you go. That'd be fun. Maybe we just do that.
Okay.
Saturday, Penn State. Yeah, the season's gone by pretty quickly here, Biggs. And then like I said, I took a vacation middle of January where there was 2 home series that I missed. I was at one CC game. Before that was Notre Dame in November. October, I think it was almost like, it was kind of weird in October. I think I went to every game. We were at the X. I was in Duluth. We went up to Grand Forks. It was kind of crazy, but
it was fun. I've been pretty consistent going to the second game of most series.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get up to Duluth like I wanted to, so I missed that one. But otherwise, pretty consistent seeing those games.
Let me see.
We got a bunch of people asking us about our favorite lineup, Jupe. Do you have favorite players?
Well, I kind of like
Besides Mike Crowley.
Well, I was thinking defensive pair, Faber and Crowley back on the back end.
Faber's, he really did a lot to endear himself to the program, I think.
Correct. Boy, I like Johnny Pohl up front. His senior year, 81 points or something like that. Boy. Forwards, it's so weird because so many.
Yeah.
And, you look at Ryan Patolny, 38 goals. That was 2000. That was the Holy Cross year. You had 38 goals in the season. And I think we had one person get 36 or 30. Somebody got close. But, it's 15 years ago, Viggs.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not seeing that kind of scoring anymore.
No, I don't think you will in college hockey. It's just gotten so good with the goaltending over the years.
Yeah, I love Leo, but I can't have a defensive pair without one of them being Crowley. So that's just how it is, folks. Sorry, not sorry.
I think this is your favorite team as well as maybe not the best team. You know what I mean? So you're not picking like the greats. You're picking like a favorite team here, I think, as well. So like Micheletti, I enjoyed him as a player in my young days.
You see, I don't remember that.
So I remember him just a little bit, because I was probably like 4 and 5, just starting to get introduced to Gopher hockey. But now, as I've met the Mick, and he comes up and he's like, "Hey, if I was in front of the net with a guy like Viggs, I mean, he'd be bleeding on the back of his legs because I would just slash him every chance I got." He'd be cross-checking me in the back, and I would just be...
Yeah, you know what? But Micheletti probably didn't play against guys that were 260, 270 either.
No, not quite. Hey, I was 230 when
then. I mean, that's pretty big.
Yeah. I was 230 as a college freshman, so I was like 210 when I played high school hockey, so I had to put on weight to play some football at St. Olaf, so it did not come off.
It's tough for me. It just is.
I mean, for me, Faber and Nate Schmidt are probably like my favorite defensemen. And as I think of it as a team, like those two would be so much fun to watch together, because Schmidt would be able to do all the crazy stuff that he'd want to do, all the big slap shots, and Faber would just be like, "Yeah, you do you. We'll get out of the zone every time in like 10 seconds, and you can go do that stuff." Thomas Vanek would be boards, just seeing him come to the stage and just be so carefree. And I don't even care. He was one of the first foreigners, in a long, long time. He just brought this attitude to that team that was so much fun. And I was in college during those days too, so it was kind of special. He'd go to the bars and stuff when I was going to the bars, so that was kind of fun. So Vanek would definitely be on my team.
I like Vanek, yep.
And Micheletti. So if I have one forward spot left, tough one.
Johnny Pohl. I like Johnny Pope because, gosh, he could win a face-off in a critical situation. And it's something we've kind of missed over this past 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was so good at face-offs, getting control of the puck. And he was an 80-point guy his last year, or 70, or something really high.
I probably have to go with Brian Bonin, though.
That's not bad either.
Brian Bonin would probably be my third forward.
Steve, I'm not going for the old guys. I'm not going to say Mayasich. I never saw him play. It's just, yeah, he's great, but it's just hard to say that. It's more people we've seen in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's people I've seen in person or I know a little bit. Sorry, Eric Shearhorn and Jack Ramsey, not probably on this team. Although, it'd be fun to have the street hockey goalie and Eric Shearhorn out there. We wouldn't really need a goalie anyway if we had Faber and Schmidt and Vanek and Micheletti and Bonin. Although, if you got Vanek and Micheletti, you're probably on the penalty kill a fair amount of time. So maybe you do need like an Adam Wilcox back there. So there we go.
It's harder. As the years go on, it gets harder and harder.
It does get harder.
And it's different eras.
I think we did like my all-decade team, and I put Jack Ramsey on there, and I got some flack from the locker room for that. I want some penalty killers on there.
I mean, you think about it, somebody like a Westrom or Mayasich plays now. That's the way the hockey game is. You're not pushing 300 points. You're just not. It's a different game. I mean, it's just flat out different. The goaltending's different. Just look at the way how they stood up and they played before. It's goaltending, the defensive systems.
And the systems too, and just like the quality of player.
It's
like,
way different.
It's way different. And the ice time, like, the first line guys in some of those old time teams, the forwards would play 25, 30 minutes. And you just don't see that anymore. The shot blocking, as Gentle Giant is going after. Because the equipment too. So,
yeah.
Okay. One more beverage for OT.
Okay, let's let me go full size here. What do you got?
Last of my hoops purchases. This is their IPA 21.
Great looking can.
Yeah, great holiday can. I probably should drink these before we get to February. This has been the worst outdoor ice season ever.
Oh,
I think we're getting like 2 weeks of outdoor ice. And then it's gonna melt.
And it was like last week.
It was super cold.
Oh boy. What do you do?
My kids are supposed to be in an outdoor tournament this weekend, got canceled. Because it's gonna be 40 something.
Hockey Day Minnesota. Does it do anything for you? I'm getting sick of it.
I think it's going to be cool for the community that does it. Like when Minneapolis did it and we were playing, like I was on the ice at the Sculpture Garden with my kids. Memory I'll have forever. So for the towns that get it and get that experience, I think it's great. As a big TV event, I don't know. I think if you're in the moment, it's great, but it's not going to be like the worldwide appeal. So I still think it's really cool. Warroad's going to knock out of the park. White Bear did a great job. Minneapolis did a great job. It's so weather dependent too. I do like Mote's lineup here of DeMarcus McAlpine. That's pretty funny. Stu Bickle would fit in that lineup too. So
I think it's almost like you need to take this chunk of 10 years, take this chunk of 10 years, take this chunk of 10 years.
Yeah.
And put your players and your teams together.
Your decade teams.
Yeah. Because like I said, the game is you compare just the 90s to the 70s and it's night and day.
Yeah.
Late 80s to early 90s and then during the 90s the game really changed. And now it's just been refined off of that in these last couple decades. That's why I think you can better defensive systems, but really I don't think the game is as different, compared to 2024 as 1994 compared to 1994 and 1974. I mean, that's a 30-year chunk compared to a 20-year chunk, and it was completely different in those transitions. So,
well, just we're seeing the growth of the game now too. Like, there's so many more players now, and with the growth of junior hockey too, it's like the age of players in college hockey is going up. It makes them better as well. They're all more experienced.
have they updated the murals lately?
They have not. I've been asking quietly. The stuff in the team areas isn't updated either. It's like players in the NHL and stuff.
Okay.
They're not keeping up on all that stuff. I feel like North Dakota makes a really big deal of updating it like as soon as it happens. And Minnesota is not.
Minnesota used to do well with the All-Americans, but
I don't know if like the rink construction this summer that stretched right up against the season maybe impacted it this year. I can see that as an excuse.
Craig Floor, what is it?
Because there's a
Why
lot
are
of
the
dust in the
All-Americans?
building.
Come on, tell us, Craig. Where you at?
But it's too bad. Because that stuff should be there.
Well, the
quickly.
player areas is not a big deal because it's not outside facing. You know, only a few of us get to see that, and it's not a huge thing. Murals? I mean,
Mural cred. We talk about
exactly.
it.
PA calls it with Micheletti. He's got mural cred. Well, quite a few guys should have mural cred right now, and they don't.
Yep. I mean, CJ Stroud just gave $150,000 or whatever to the Ohio State NIL. You know, if Brock Faber's going to give money to the NIL and Dickeytown athletes, he should at least be on the mural, right? Maybe that's what's holding them back.
Craig Floor's in his garage thinking, "Did I say something?"
He's like, probably should just stay quiet. We'll get it like a text message. He's like, I can't tell you. I'll tell you later.
I don't see anything. It's quiet. Craig's gone quiet. Oh boy, yeah, interesting finale to the season here, Vigs. You know, these next 2 weekends are huge.
Yeah, I feel really good about this weekend. Next weekend, I'm still very nervous about. That Hastings formula works really well against Minnesota.
Yes.
And the fact that Hastings brought some of his best players from Mankato to that team almost makes it kind of like a super team, you know? And they're paying
I
off.
forgot to mention this, but I think Strobel and Clark could be another big key to success. Clark's cooled off since earlier this season. You know, maybe they're covering him better. Maybe he's just not getting the puck luck. But
well, he's not playing with Pitlick and
that
who are the other guys that get in the doghouse? I'm trying to think. Brodzinski. Seemed like every time one of those guys got matched up with Clark, they'd score immediately. One thing Dylan Laux pointed out to me during the game was Nelson and Clark were going out there for faceoffs in the D zone in the third period.
And then skating off once they had control?
Yeah, one of them would skate off, which was an interesting wrinkle to see. I don't think Bob has done that very often, send out two centers at the end of the game, but he was taking Nevers off for those, which was interesting. So you saw Nevers off and Brodzinski with Clark and Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And, just it's smart. It gives you two centers for every D zone draw. And if you ice the puck, you've got two out there. So either dot, you're fine. I do think Pino and Strobel will rotate with each other. Pino is still in that developmental power play group, the blue group, as they call it, with Clark and a couple other guys. What exactly is the Hastings formula? Trapping, staying above the puck, super disciplined, physical, and skate hard all the time. Like no soft plays. Like everything's hard against them. Every time you get the puck, there's going to be a body on you. Like you're not just going to get free transitions, and they're very careful with the puck. Like they don't give it away very often.
I think patience is the key
Against them.
Yes,
Yeah.
you think of the national championship between Denver and Minnesota State. It was looking like the exact same thing for 2 periods. Minnesota State's going to win 1-0, 2-1, something like that. Denver they really just absorbed, and then all of a sudden they found something after observing or just playing the game, and they just turned it around like that.
Well, they didn't force it. Like they didn't force situations.
That's
they just
the
waited
part.
for plays to present themselves, and they were ready. Bob talks about sometimes his team gets bored and they start doing stuff that they shouldn't do. They do low percentage plays because they're bored with just tying shift after shift when 0-0. And you just have to be patient sometimes and be like, okay, I didn't give anything to the other team that shift, and I got momentum for my team. It's a tie, but it's a win, right? And that's really hard to get through to first round, second round, third round draft picks who have dreams of playing in the NHL. They want to push the play. They want to develop. They want to score. They want to take chances. They want to go on offense. It's a different philosophy. There's a reason why first round picks don't go to Minnesota State to play for Mike Hastings. Now, he's got a few of those coming to Wisconsin, but I think the reason they're so successful right now is because of the guys he brought with him from Mankato, and the guys who are already at Wisconsin are benefiting from that structure because everybody else is patient, and then the transition happens, and you've got the skill guys to take advantage. So it's complicated. It's very obvious to me why Bob doesn't do it. You're not going to have recruiting classes like Minnesota gets if you play that style. Like, there's a reason why Isaac Howard left UMD. He didn't want to play defensive style. He's at Michigan State, wins a gold medal with the World Junior team, and he's on prospect lists because he's scoring goals and getting to play offense. It's a very different way to play hockey.
Yeah.
And it has won. Have they won a national championship at Minnesota State?
No,
but
neither is Minnesota.
But they've been close. Different ways to get there.
Well, Minnesota State was in the national championship game too. I'm just saying, it was just. I think it is going to have to be patience. You just don't just play smart. Be patient. We've seen them do this at times. They seem to tend to forget about it every time they played Mankato, and then obviously getting swept here at home by Wisconsin.
No.
So
I think they were surprised. I think they're surprised by how good Wisconsin was. I don't think it got into their heads that it's like playing Mankato, except with better players.
It is now.
And as Cappy has said, that's going to be a hard team to play against because they're going to be well conditioned. So they're going to be able to play a hard game for 60 minutes. Like they've been prepared for that. And they've been disciplined. If they don't do it, they don't play, or they might have some extra skating to do or something. I don't know what that is in the modern era to keep it buttoned up. It's not always extra skating, but it's something to keep them in line.
It's going to be fun. Definitely going to be fun. So, all right, Viggs, I'm tired. I need to get to bed.
Okay. Should be fun this weekend.
Yeah.
I hope they play well.
You picked them
sweep. I picked sweep. Yeah.
I'm going to have to grab that clip and make sure I got it saved for when they do sweep. Just look at Eric Vegoe right here. Wednesday night, predicted the sweep. Of course, I'll put it out there if they get swept too.
Yeah. Either way, you're setting me up. It's fine. I can take it either way. I'm a big boy. I wouldn't face Derek Schooley. I can face you. Yeah, Ben, not happening. I'm just gonna take it patiently. I'm gonna, review my notes and be ready for tomorrow. This is Hoop Spirits, delicious. So,
yeah. Clicked it once there. All right, folks. We'll be back next week. got Molesky on. Always great to have him on. And then like in 2 weeks, a new guest. So it'll be
Be
fun.
ready for the swag giveaway. We're gonna have some stuff. It'll be fun.
All right. Good night, folks.